Because the heart of a worshiper is always thankful. Always thankful. So David, who is the drum major in this parade of praises, he is leading the people in celebration back to Jerusalem. And the text says that David is dancing before the Lord with all of his might. And so David teaches us one more thing about the heart of a worshiper. And that is, the heart of a worshiper is passionate, humble, and sometimes misunderstood. The heart of a worshiper is passionate, humble, and sometimes misunderstood. David's dance is the Hebrew word karab, which means to jump and twirl around and around. David was fervently and passionately dancing so much that he was literally coming out of his clothes. This was no holds barred, everything I got, run around the church cartwheeling worship. He was picking them up and putting them down and did not care who was watching or what they thought. His attire was not a king's robe, but he was wearing a linen ephod, which was the undergarment of the priest. Right now, all David wanted to be known as was a worshiper. Anybody who looked at him, he didn't want them to get mesmerized by a crown on his head or by a robe around him. All he wanted them to see right now is that he was a worshiper. David didn't want to do anything that would bring attention to himself. I got to put a pin in it right there. See, every now and then you'll go to some places and you begin to watch some people worship, and you begin to ask them, who am I supposed to worship, you or God? If you want all the attention on you, then none of the attention is going to God. That's why that song says, if I get any glory, let it be deflected to my Lord. Because see, the harsh desire of a worshiper is that everything they do will point to God. All of the attention must be deflected to the divine. That means you don't do anything that's going to bring attention to yourself, but everything you do ought to bring glory to your God. See, he wanted to lead other people all the way to Jerusalem in a parade of praise. And so he wore the linen ephod because he did not want anything on him that would restrict his movement. I don't know about y'all, but see, I have this rule. When I go and buy something new, it's got to pass the praise test. I go in the dressing room and I try it on, and then I got to lift my arms while I'm in the dressing room. And after I lift my arms, I got to kick my feet out a little bit in the dressing room. And then I got to move all around, and see, if anybody was looking at me, they think she crazy. But every one of my clothes got to pass the praise test. I got to be able to praise him without nothing showing. I got to be able to praise him without being unseemly. I got to be able to lift my arms and know I'm still covered. And so this is what David was saying. He wanted to make sure his clothes passed the praise test. Oh, see, if what you got on stops you from praising God, it doesn't pass the praise test. If your heels are too high for you to lift your hands to the Lord, it doesn't pass the praise test. I mean, if your heels are too high that you can't shout before the Lord, it doesn't pass the praise test. If your clothes are too tight that you can't lift your hands up without your skirt lifting too, it doesn't pass the praise test. How many of you all know your clothes need to pass the praise test? Ain't nobody need to tell. I know I now stopped preaching and went to meddling, but I know that when I see people doing this, I want to say, your dress was that short when you left home. Ain't nobody had to tell you. You got mirrors in your house